All right, recording in progress. So, welcome again, y'all. Again, we're talking today about managing maladaptive daydreaming for academic success. And like how we were just speaking to, a lot of these practices, skills, techniques can be used for academic work, any other kind of like work in our lives, whether that be, academic or not. My name is Jane, and this is Luna, my co-presenter. I will just take us through a quick agenda. We're going to do introductions again. So, like Jane said, I am a psychotherapist, a licensed clinical social worker. I both have struggled with MD and I also work alongside clients with MD to manage and live a better life with MD. So, I'll click it over to Luna too, so you can briefly introduce yourself again, just have it on the recording.
Yeah, my quick intro is that I suffer from MD. I've been a student for a very long time in different academic settings, and I had my own methods to deal with it, and I kind of had considerable academic success, I would say. And I'm here to help Jane. Yeah.
Thank you so much. So the agenda today, again, this will be very conversational. You can throw a message in the chat. You can take yourself off mute if there's any questions or comments throughout. We're just going to have like a very brief review of maladaptive daydreaming, just to kind of like get us all on the same page. We are going to talk a little bit about the different barriers to studying with MD, and then go into strategies, practices, skills to manage MD while studying. Oop, there we go. Okay, quick review. What is maladaptive daydreaming? So, like we were kind of talking before, this was coined by Dr. Samar. I did quote him here. So, it's been proposed as a distinct condition where the primary symptom is distressing and functionally impairing fantasizing immersions in mental imagery. Right now, it's not its own diagnosis or specific treatment protocol. So, as a clinician, I usually treat this in conjunction with other mental health concerns, like Jane said, like OCD, complex trauma, ADHD, and autism spectrum disorders. So, we kind of take from a couple of different modalities in order to tailor treatment to clients. And I would encourage you all to be open to different kind of like ways of structuring your treatment as well. There's many different unique presentations to MD, and I always kind of like to tell clients like, this was most likely functional at one point. There was a problem where it was probably adaptive and had a use. However, now it is really impairing and disruptive to the things that we're trying to do in this world, whether they be work, whether it be studying, socializing, and many others. Luna, do you have any other like commentary, anything that I might have like missed here? Anecdotes?
I mean, you didn't miss anything. I was just gonna say, like, it was functional at some point, like when we were little, and maybe you didn't have a lot of friends, so that's how you entertained yourself, like spend your time, using your imagination. And I think that it can still be functional, if you manage it, even when you're an adult who have like, college or like work. I truly believe that, but it's hard. I'm gonna admit, but it's possible. Yeah.
Yeah, agreed. Like hard but possible. A lot of times this is something that we struggle with throughout our lives, and we're not working towards like total elimination, but rather we're working to kind of like integrate it and or like manage so that you can like live a very like fulfilling and a life full of like vitality, both internally and externally. So maybe we go now into like our barriers that we face in studying. So I know Luna and I were kind of talking and dialoguing about this earlier. Luna, do you want to like kick this one off and then I'll.
Yeah, so I mean, I guess I'll go through the bullet points, but I will kind of explain.
Yeah.
Uh, so like we usually, I think what happens is that when we have to do something that we don't like, or like it's the stakes are really high, we procrastinate because like we fear failing. And for us, like our brains can do this thing that give us really quick dopamine and make us feel comfortable for a very short time. So we procrastinate. And like it's also a mechanism to escape from that stressor. So what I would say for that, and I think we will come back to that in the next slide, is when you're like you have to do some task for school or for anything, instead of thinking about the big stake, let's say like there's going to be a final exam, just like having a daily goal of what you need to achieve that day. That's gonna help a lot because then the stakes are gonna be much lower. It's gonna look much more manageable and you're less likely to procrastinate. Um, but I'm also gonna add, if you make it too easy, then that might also lead to procrastination because then you'll think, oh, like it's easy, I can do it very last minute. So I think like there needs to be a balance of like it should be a little difficult, not too difficult, and like enough work that will actually get you somewhere. If you know what I mean, maybe Jane can explain it better.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, I think that really helps. What else do we have? Sorry, I'm trying to read. Yeah. Well,
Yeah, you're all
because
good.
like easily absorbed into MD, obviously we have these problems because we can easily get absorbed. Whether like there is a stimuli, let's say like you were just watching a TV show that you really like, or like reading a book that you really like, or listening to music that you really like, that can put us into the MD absorption, and then it's really hard to get out of that, in my experience. So you said other underlying mental conditions, however, I can't read, it's very small.
Yeah, you're all
Yeah.
good. I can take this one and right on. Like I do think kind of trying to strike a balance is really important with like the goal setting and structure. And we'll talk more about that like on our next slide. Um, so a lot of times what I'm seeing too is that maybe for someone with like OCD, right, we're engaging in maladaptive daydreaming, but it's not only we're struggling with that, we're also struggling with a compulsion, like a replaying compulsion. And so it might kind of show up as we're replaying until it feels just right. So sometimes having underlying mental health concerns can also contribute to significant impairment because it's like not only are we battling against trying to manage MD, but we're also struggling maybe with like compulsions that are associated or kind of contribute in that way. And then, yeah, like Luna said, I think becoming like easily absorbed into MD is definitely something that I struggled with, whether it was from like a stimulus or kind of having like a lack of stimulus. But the absorption into MD is, I know, something that I've really struggled with as well and can feel very like frustrating when it's something that feels a little like out of our control.
Yeah. And like not having that structure in your mind, that like what you don't know what you're gonna do with your study session. Like you don't know the specific tasks that you need to do. That combined, like when the two combines, let's say like what would happen to me was like I was, let's say, like walking home and I was listening to music, and I would tell myself, okay, I'm gonna do that thing. I have to do that thing when I get home. But then I would arrive home and I was listening to music and I didn't really plan beforehand like what I was supposed to do, and then it would just be super hard to start without the structure. And because I also have the stimulus that leads to MD for myself. So
Which is a good point
yeah.
too, because it might not be just one barrier that you're facing. It could be a combination of these, right, that reinforce one another and make it even more challenging to manage. Does anyone have one that we don't have on here? You can like throw it in the chat. You take yourself off mute. I'll leave a little space for it in case there's anything that we haven't identified that feels important to mention. We'll move
Mm.
on, but know that you're welcome to. And when we talk about different like techniques or skills to manage, that might also kind of like spark a thought. There we go. Okay. So managing maladaptive daydreaming, studying. First and foremost, building awareness. What are the times? What are the places? What are the stimuluses or kind of like precipitants to our experience of MD? Oh, I'm seeing the chat too.
Boredom.
Yes, for sure. I feel like that is like the number one like stimulus or contributor for myself and for many other folks that I see too. That can be a real trigger for it. So yeah, like in essence, right? Like we're building awareness right now. Boredom, right? Like what are things that really kind of like contribute to boredom, whether it's within the study in the material, is it in our environment? Is it with like different people, right? But I kind of like to think of like who, what, where, why, but really the first couple, like what's the environment, like what's happening. Any tidbits from you, Luna? Like ways that you've built awareness or
Yeah, I mean, not liking a study topic, like I totally relate to this. Like I come from a country where we have a lot of standardized testing. So you have to do like multiple choice questions all day, and it's extremely stressful. It's very competitive and super boring. Um, yeah, so I totally get that. What I would do for like something that I don't want to study, I kind of said the opposite of this earlier, but like with that thing that you don't want to do right now, there is actually something that it will lead to that you might want. Like, for example, you don't like that certain topic, but you need that class, that credit to graduate. So like think about that instead of like, you know, making it super like personal and making it feel like a personal attack, like and like victimizing yourself for like having to study that and like having to do that homework. It's just a phase. What like you'll just do the work and it's gonna be over and you'll get the thing that you actually want and you don't have to go back to it again for the most part. Um, yeah.
period, right? So maybe it is like the material, kind of like trying to increase like willingness or buy-in through like, okay, well, this is a prereq for class that I really want to take, right? Like I know for me it was like calculus, right? But that was one of the prereqs for like abnormal psychology, which is like, well, that one sounds very interesting. Maybe I can get more buy-in there. And then, like you said, Luna, like maybe there's something with like the pressurized situation within the school system, the types of exams, the kind of like repetition. Those are all really important factors to understand when it comes to building awareness.
And also I think like it can become rewarding. I think there is a reward, like feeling of reward, like that you feel from doing something that you don't really like, but like progressively getting better at it. Like I don't know, it might be
Totally.
a little toxic, but like I feel like when sometimes I struggle with something a lot and I am forced to do it and then I see progress, I actually feel very strong. And that might be one of those things. Also, like once you progress at something, you might actually like it. Like usually the beginning of things, I take a lot of dance classes and it's really hard and it doesn't look good when you start, but as you go, like consistently practice, it gets better and you actually enjoy those things that you thought you could never do. Uh, yeah, like
Yeah, you're onto something, right? Like it's in dialectical behavior therapy. Actually, it's called building mastery. But sometimes us as humans, like we really like a sense of progression. We like a sense of building mastery and building skillfulness in something. And so sometimes that in and of itself can be the reward. And we will definitely talk about rewards and reinforcement later, because I am a behaviorist at heart, and I also just think like we're all deserving of a little reward and a little treat, whether it's studying or work. So the big second one that I like to talk about with folks is reducing the ability to MD, because MD is often like the path of least resistance. Like just how we talked about, it's really easy to get absorbed into MD with our brains. And especially when we're facing circumstances like how we're talking about studying today, right? With finals. So there's like multiple contributing factors that make MD the path of least resistance. So knowing that, we have to create resistance. And so we kind of create like man-made resistance, whether that's kind of points of resistance in our schedule, whether that's within the way in which we're studying, which we'll talk about in a moment. But there's just different ways that we might be able to create some like man-made resistance that then will aid in us reducing MD behaviors during studying and finals and such. And so maybe we go into talking about the next one because this is what Luna and I actually did to do this PowerPoint. So
no,
one of
I
the favorite ways of creating resistance is body doubling or like studying with one another, studying around other people, or even if like the person's not studying, like Luna, you said when your mom's like cooking, right? Like it just
they
provides
just
another
exist in
person.
the room, like they're just an accountability partner. Like they
Yes.
don't have to know what you're doing, they don't have to check your work, but they're just there, and then that prevents you from doing MD and like keeps you focused. That
Yeah.
is super helpful. That's how we did this PowerPoint presentation because I'm terrible at sitting down.
Yeah, it's like hard, right? And I know sometimes like how I said before, like this presents in many different ways. For some of us, it might be a little bit more like inactive or might be like very internalizing, but for others, it might be that we're like acting it out, we're speaking into the mirror, we're like walking around. And so sometimes it makes it harder to do that when there's another person. Um, so body doubling is what I've been calling it as of late. This tends to be like I would say like a client favorite, because not only are we then kind of like maybe like socializing with other people and like doing or like studying, but there's kind of like multiple rewards or like points of reinforcement here.
Yeah, and you don't have to have them physically there. You can be on Zoom, you can like
Totally.
FaceTime, be on WhatsApp, like on a call.
Yeah,
Um,
they have like
yeah,
groups too. I think on like I know one of my clients told me on like TikTok, sometimes you can join in a live stream of someone who's like studying and you can all study together. So it can be with people that you know, people that you don't know, a study group at school, or even like you said, like your mom like cooking or like a sibling doing something else.
that might actually be more helpful than someone like who's, who you're very close with and you guys are doing the same thing because then you tend to distract each other. That might also happen. I think it's important who you're choosing to work with. But most of the time, I realize that even when I'm, choosing someone who's like close to me and maybe we're not being 100% productive, it's still better than me being alone because I'm very likely to not do half of the work that I'm gonna do with someone who's distracted.
Period. I'm all about like small wins. And
Yes.
so like any kind of like moment of improvement, right? Like any small step is a win to me.
Yeah.
The other big one is delaying. So I like to tell folks like delay as long as possible, but we can also do it like little by little. So sometimes even delaying it by like 5 minutes, 10 minutes, 15 minutes, it gives us a bit of time to study, maybe it's to do something else. But it can help us like ride out the urge to become absorbed in MD. And so I find that this is a technique that works as well. I will also say I've been finding success as of late in having folks delay MD until they are like done with their day, which is tough in the beginning. And I do find that people are able to build momentum in this way. So would also plug the delaying. Again, if we can't get buy-in with like 15, 30 minutes, like try 5 minutes, try 3 minutes. Any minute in between is going to help in building resistance towards MD and creating something that's a little bit more like manageable.
I would also add, I'm not sure if this is considered delaying, but
No.
one of the riskiest things in my day is like the transition periods. Like let's say you're commuting and you say, okay, I'm gonna listen to music while I commute, and then when I come home, I'm gonna stop. So what I would recommend is like stop listening to music before you get home. Uh, so
Yeah.
like when you're transitioning between the space, like train and home, you are in a like you stop that MD and then you're in a different track. Because otherwise it becomes very hard. I don't think this is delaying. I don't even know what to call this, but I think it's a big trap. Like when you come home with your headphones on and um
No, I
especially
think it's it. Like I think this is like exactly what I'm talking about with like the building awareness and then creating a path of resistance, or like putting resistance in place, right? Because like you said, it's like we're building awareness and that's like, okay, well, when I'm commuting, I'm very prone to that. And so knowing that it's a hard transition to make once I arrive home, like I'm going to choose to turn off the music beforehand. That's
yeah.
exactly what I mean by creating resistance. And there's some delaying in there as well. And better. Okay. This is another one. Move your feet, even if it's just pressing the feet into the ground or the subtle movement of the breath. Like movement, I think can really aid in like containing and like breaking up the absorption into MD. So sometimes when delaying feels like too much, body doubling feels like too much, there's a lot of, or there's like a lack of like ways to create resistance, even just pressing into the feet, walking around a little bit. If we tend to kind of get absorbed through movement, then maybe it's the subtle movement of the breath in your body and really kind of like narrowing our attention on that. Again, this does not have to be long. It does not have to be extravagant. It could be 3 minutes. It could be 5 minutes. It could be 10 minutes. But sometimes practicing re embodiment, if we are more externalizing or like externalizing the movement, but kind of doing the opposite, is often very like supportive. So I kind of like to say like move your feet and your feelings will follow, or move your feet and your attention will follow. But it can kind of create a bit of like an anchor in terms of our attention.
I agree. Yeah, especially like if you're someone who also like also not necessarily like hyperactive, but like an active person, I think that really helps. Um,
Sure.
yeah. We
Then we
have another
have,
point.
yeah, we have a couple other ones. These are a little bit more like
Yeah.
a little more like general, but I do think can be kind of like customized, tailored. Again, we do want to create things that are like very like individualized for each person, because everyone is so different in the way that this shows up. So a big one, either now or kind of like overall in terms of managing MD, is to investigate what's behind the urge, right? Like what's behind the absorption. Could it be that it's a response to something like negative, unpleasant happening internally, right? Whether it's thoughts, emotions, physical sensations, or even like external, right? Like, are we facing a great deal of pressure in our academic environment? Is it very difficult? Is it a class that we don't like? And it's like, oh, it's really hard to get myself into this material. Identifying this might help us and guide us into identifying another like skill or practice, or idea that could be of use. So I kind of like to ask, like, like, what's the message here? What is this telling me about what I might need right now? And then how do I attune to that, right? Like, how do I like meet that need that I have? But having like a bit of like a curiosity and like a conversation with yourself around like the MD, because oftentimes like there is something underlying, right? There's this need that's there. Humans don't typically do things for no reason. So if we look further and get real curious and real granular, what's happening here?
Yeah. I have a question for you. So when you say like look at the like should we look at the content of the MD or the situation that leads to it or
Great
both?
question. I think both. Because
I
I think
yeah.
sometimes it can speak to what, like the content of the MD, and or like sometimes it can be external. Like I know for me, I had one that I would revert to a lot when I was a child, and it was kind of like I was like a dressmaker, and it was like making like a lot of like dresses and like costumes and things, because that's something that I really enjoy doing and that I wasn't able to do. But the construction of clothing was definitely something that I actually do now. And I don't engage in that MD anymore. So that's maybe an example of like the content was really what was capturing me. That was really like the need. I think it was a need for creativity. Unfortunately, I didn't get a lot of time to be creative as a kid. And I know many of us have that experience versus maybe something like, Luna, you were describing earlier, right, with like this pressured environment in your schooling where it was like standardized tests all the time. And it was like really dry and boring material. And there's so much pressure to do well. That's maybe like an external kind of like condition that might be behind like the urge, right? It's like, well, we're kids, like we don't want to like have to study all day, or maybe the material is not very enticing, or not easy to interact with.
That also usually like goes beyond just the material and how boring it is. It almost becomes like your self-worth comes from that. And that is something I realized very late in my life, like that, oh, like I am seeking validation by being successful. Um, and like then how am I gonna how am I gonna stop that? Because then I would look at my daydreams and it was always like me doing something really well and like sometimes people I don't know, like they're not like specific people or sometimes specific people, they would see it and admire like my ability or my success or whatever, which is kind of the reason I was academically successful. I'm not gonna lie, like that motivated me a lot. But I think it's important to be aware of that, like
Totally, awareness is key to using it, right? Like it's not
awareness is
inherently
super
good or bad.
important. Like what need is that meeting? Like besides, yes, we avoid stress, we procrastinate, but what is that content? What is that want that we have that we don't get to express or experience?
Absolutely, right? That is one that comes up quite a lot too. It's like acknowledgement, or like being able to connect with our inherent worth as human beings, like through MD. So that's a great example too of kind of like internal and external, right? Like it's speaking to a need of, um, like increased connection to our inherent sense of worth, and maybe like an inherent sense of like esteem for oneself.
Yeah, and like as you analyze that, like I don't think our MD will ever stop. Like I don't think our brain has this ability, so I think it will do it until we die. But I think as you analyze those things and if as you become aware, the content changes. Like it's like an awareness journey.
It
So I
is,
think
right?
and like at least even if you still imagine the same things, daydream about the same things, you will at least know why. And that's better than not knowing why, I think.
Oh, 1,000%. Like I think it's useful in terms of just like personal development or getting to know oneself better. It can be helpful in like managing. And I know what you mean. Like they really kind of like shift and change throughout our lives. Like there might be some that stay consistent, but there might be some that change. And that might
Yeah.
also be like an evolving need that we might have, or something that is different than it was before. But that's
And
kind of
also
what I mean
like,
by like attuning to it, right?
yeah,
Like
and
being able
also
to
make
really closely identify.
practical choices, like that thing that you do in your MD, like can you find a way to like do it in your life, like meet that need in your real life? Like let's say in your, you said you were like making dresses. Can you find like a YouTube tutorial, like get an old jean and like cut it and make something from it? um like how does that actually feel in real life? Because sometimes it's also like that thing is actually not as rewarding, or it comes with a lot of challenges that you don't consider when you do the MD.
Right, it might just feel different, or it might be similar in form, but like the function of it is different. Because that's another big one. Like that's a question I didn't put down here, but kind of like what's the function of it, right? Like whether it's the content or externally. But I know what you mean. It's like it all is about being really gentle, curious, and investigating, and like seeing like, hey, like what's here? What can I learn from this? How might I kind of like utilize that? And then how do I kind of again like attune or tailor this to myself to make it true to who you are, right? In like our own situations. The other two, kind of like more like global considerations, structure today's. What holds us to appointments, work, study time when we cannot hold ourselves. So if we know that we have like a lot of studying to do, I sometimes do have folks structure their weeks. So there's like limited time for MD, or we have it contained to like a particular part of the day. Um, that sometimes is really supportive overall, in making sure that we're kind of getting through our list of to-dos, or like when we were talking about creating like a study plan that feels less overwhelming, stick to the plan that we have like laid out for oneself. And
And
then finally, like, or sorry, go ahead, Luna, I cut you
I
off.
was also gonna say, look, I think for me, location is very important. Like,
Yes.
it's just like being in my room, even if I have a structure, it's very hard to sit down. Like go to the library or go to a coffee shop. Like you don't even have to buy coffee. Like if you go to Starbucks, just grab someone's empty thing and just put it there. And like it just helps more. It's almost like body doubling. You're not necessarily communicating with the people around you, but at least you're in a place, in a location where the expected behavior is sitting and studying or working. Um, and the good thing about that is like then MD can become your reward because you're gonna finish your studying, you're done, and then you can go home and daydream as much as you want until tomorrow. Um, yeah.
Well, it's a great example of structure, right? So maybe it is like, okay, like this week I'm going to go to Starbucks, or I'm going to go to the library on Tuesday and Thursday. I'm going to stay there for this amount of time, whether it's for a study group, doing it individually. But I do think like even structuring like the location, right? It can be all of that, like the who, the what, the where.
Yeah.
The structure can be really important on like in a global sense, to like creating like more resistance.
Mhm.
And like what I said too, reward and treat yourself. Positive reinforcement goes a long way. If we're going to kind of like shape our behavior and work to contain MD and manage, positive reinforcement is powerful and it will aid us in this endeavor. So whether that's using MD as the reward or as a reinforcing kind of like thing, or it could be something else. It could be an item, it could be an experience, it could be big, it could be small. But if we do kind of like structure our days, we hold ourselves to it, we're able to reach whatever goal that we had set out for ourselves. Please reward yourself. Positive reinforcement is incredibly important. We respond very well to it as humans. And so it's important to incorporate that into the structure and overall, when we're working to manage MD.
Yeah, and I think like verbally reinforce yourself too. Like
Totally.
I did well today. Like I killed it. I slayed.
Yeah.
Like I'm the queen. Like I'm the queen of study sessions. You know,
All that
say
in a bag of chips.
teach your
Yeah.
brain how to think about yourself. I think it's very like it's a lifestyle.
Yeah, and like being
For whatever.
encouraging with yourself. I think like as a reinforcement, and I would also add like maybe throughout it too, right? Like I think after even little things that we do, like we deserve some encouragement and gentleness. And so I do think it's like being your biggest hype person, just as you would like a friend or a family member, right? Like hype yourself up. Be really kind and gentle with
Really,
yourself.
it might feel, I'm sorry, I'm interrupting you. It might feel really cringy. Like I still
I
feel
know.
cringy when I do it sometimes, but like it doesn't matter. Like doesn't matter. It does make a difference.
It
Like
totally does.
like you're a movie character. You're like that nerdy girl who knows everything or guy. Like you're into school, you know? That's a character that you can play too. Like it helps me. It
Yeah,
helped me throughout my whole life, actually.
I know. And like I know it's cringy too. I feel the same way. And like to be cringe is to be free, y'all. Like, come on.
Yeah,
I'm like, I
exactly.
know it's really hard and it
Yeah.
sometimes feels very like icky. And at the same time, it's like, hey, like we're worth it. And we do deserve some encouragement and reinforcement. And eventually it doesn't feel so cringe. And it just feels like this is just the way that I go about things. I just am a encouraging and lovely person to myself and others.
Yes, because I feel like you do it to other people too. And then the response you get, you actually realize that no, it's not cringy, it's true. And like if you think it's cringy or like funny or whatever, then say it in a funny way. You know, like,
Yeah, and like
oh
be
my
true to
God, like
yourself.
I'm amazing, I'm the boss, I'm everything. Like it's funny, but it's
Yeah.
still, you do it and then your brain learns that.
Mhm. And you can be sassy with it, right? Like add your own personality onto it. Like it
Yeah,
doesn't have to be all like hey, like we're watching some like rom-com movie or something, right? Like if your kind of ways like that, like do it in a way that's authentic to you. Like I think sometimes that's what hits the most. We do things in a genuine and authentic way, even the self-talk with oneself.
yeah. Hmm.
And so
Yes.
throughout all this, like I know we gave y'all like lots of different ideas and some examples, but I would really urge y'all to customize, like take the ideas, but make them your own. You can modify, you can add, you can adjust. Sometimes it's about kind of like incorporating a few, trialing those out. And if it's not broke, don't break it. So if you're already doing something that works, keep it up, right? Integrate some of these, why not? But I do think like how I found success for myself and my clients in terms of managing MD is to really tailor it to oneself and be genuine and authentic about like what actually is going to be like workable for you in your own life.
Yeah. Hmm.
Uh, and then so we just have like question and answer. So we'd love to hear from y'all in terms of like things that we like didn't cover. Like if y'all have questions or specific kind of like barriers
Same.
facing that we need support on, like we're here for y'all. So I'll stop sharing the screen so we can all just like see one another's faces again, and I'll check like, the chat and such.
Um, oh, this is the volunteer link, right? Khan, the one in the chat.
Yeah, I'd like to run a quick announcement. We're always looking for volunteers. And don't worry if you don't have any volunteering experience before. We will train you. We will find a position or role for you that you are comfortable with. We are glad for any time that you can put into advocating for MD, and you will get to work alongside some of the smartest, some of the nicest, kindest people I've ever met. So we invite you kindly to consider volunteering with us. That's all.
Yeah, no, we'd love to have y'all. And thank you too, like special shout out to like Khan and Shivani for like helping like disseminate information this week. And last week, like I know I was in charge of like the content, but we couldn't have done it without y'all. And we appreciate you so much. And yeah, like, come join us.
I'd love to hear about what other people like what people think work for them and don't. I mean, I can tell I was a very good student and I used most of what both of you suggested. And then I added one thing to it. So I did everything. I was very, very structured. Like people used to make fun of my lists. Like I had like lists upon list of you're doing this now and then this now. What people didn't know because not what I didn't tell them is in addition to the list, I was like, okay, after getting tutoring done, then you can daydream for 20 minutes. When you've gotten to number 5 on the list, you can daydream for 15 minutes. That only works if you set a timer. We didn't have these phones back then, but I actually used a regular alarm clock. But that was, I rewarded myself with daydreaming time and then kept it very, very structured. And then the one thing I added, if it was like an all-day study session, because I was in law school and I was just dying, I would sometimes send one of my characters to law school and I was pretending I was teaching her the material. And so like when I was reviewing in my head, I was like teaching her the material, and that helped. And then just going back to what Con said about volunteering, like the more you're active, I mean, in the real world, the more you're doing stuff. Like, so if I was ever like in a group conversation, I wasn't daydreaming. So study groups, right? Like whenever, but also like the more you're involved in activities in real life, the less you're going to find yourself doing MDing. So that's another plug to volunteer because that's an activity that you can do as volunteer for the ISMD and meet lots of people who share the same challenges, but some of the same strengths as well.
And that's a great mention too, Jane. Like in terms of like incorporating the MD into what you're doing, that's something that I know I have a couple clients who do to great success. Like I've thought about for myself as well. But yeah, like personally, it's like the structure definitely helps, like moving around, like the body doubling. All of the stuff that I presented today is again, it's from myself, it's from Luna, it's from like my clients, and we all work together to support one another and kind of tailor it to like each our own. I also just wanted to address Emma's question in the chat too. Is it somewhat like an addiction? Is it easier or better to try to stop completely for most or some people because doing it every once in a while will get away from you? Here's what I would say as a clinician. I think it's more like OCD and that like we're probably always going to have like a tendency to be absorbed in MD. Our job is to work to like manage it. Because unlike addiction, we're working more towards kind of like minimizing the role that it plays in our life. Like that's kind of why when we were looking at those other considerations, like identifying like the need or like what's underlying it is really important. That's key to managing it a lot more. So we might always have like a tendency to, and that does not mean that we cannot live successful and like lovely lives and get out there and do all kinds of different stuff. Like Jane and Luna and all of us have talked about today, like we've all been in different types of schooling, lived different types of lives. So I kind of think of it more like an OCD presentation than like an addiction. It's kind of like working to manage and kind of like minimize rather than working towards elimination, because there might always be a tendency there, kind of like an OCD, how folks with OCD, I know this because I also like personally have OCD. You might always have intrusions, but that doesn't mean that we're going to react to them all the time, or we can't kind of like practice response prevention so well to the point where it ain't no thing. And that thought just like floats by and it's not stuck anymore. Does that like make sense? Okay. Yeah, of course. And then let me see if there's any other questions. Being public. Yes, Anne. Being in public and surrounded by people makes it harder to daydream. Being in a quiet room triggers. Yes, absolutely.
I was also going to say, and this is not just about MD, I think this is like a big picture thing. And we talked about this in our meeting too with Jane, like don't wait for motivation to come. Don't like it might come, it might not come. We don't know that. We have no control over like how we're going to feel 5 minutes from now. Like we think we can, but we actually don't know. So I think that structure is very important. And the thing is, like, as you do it, as you kind of force yourself a little bit, like gently force yourself, never talk negative to yourself, but I gotta do this. Like when I do this, I'm gonna feel good. In time, you might actually feel motivated to do it because things will get easier. Like there's gonna be a learning curve, and then it's just gonna like your brain will get used to it and it's gonna be more automatic, and then that's gonna be motivation. But in the beginning, I would not wait for motivation for anything.
Totally. I know what you mean. I remember being as a kid, like asking like what does it feel like? Like I still and I still wonder the same thing. So I do think like the structure, just like Luna said, like the encouraging self-talk, really, really important. Like almost as if you were like, I don't know if y'all have animals, but if you're trying to get your animal to like do a trick or something, right? We're so kind and sweet with them. Never talk bad on them, right? Use the same language with yourself. And then Valeria, I know you have your hand up.
I thank you for your presentation. I just like to remind anyone that it might be different for any one of us. And as you said before, awareness is so important. And we need to understand the specific way that we functions. For example, in my case, Jane's method, the one that she was speaking before, like allowing yourself to daydream only for 20 minutes, I know it wouldn't work. Because if I started to daydream, I was like, an alcoholic that if I just drink only one, then I drink 10 glasses of wine. I can't stop. So if you are in that case, you may not want to do that to reward yourself until the days ended. So anything that you hear also from us, it's like you always need to remember that you need to take that. And if in case it doesn't work, your case is not hopeless. You just tried something different. This is very important for me because I hear so many stories of Maladaptive dreamers, and you know, we have this in common, but we have different brains. So the important thing is to learn what have worked for others and try for ourselves, and then see if what we can apply. So it's a self-discover journey. And the other thing I'd like to say for students, consider the memory technique. I was never told when I was young. Now I'm studying again. They are so useful. And because we can visualize things very easily, it's a superpower for us. Like you could find a lot of memory technique books. Study can be really, really much easier with that. They require, for example, if you want to remember a specific name of an historic person, you can find a funny way, maybe because his or her name sound like another word in your language. And it's so easy. It's almost like cheating, because it's so easy to remember things that way. I was never told when I was young. It's so powerful. So you can use your visualizing technique for that.
Yeah.
Yes,
And
absolutely.
also, this might sound a little extreme, but like if you're going to a class, go to that class as if you're not attending a class as a student, but you're attending a conference as a professional. Like you're going to that calculus class, you're a calculus professor, whatever, I don't know what they call themselves, mathematician, and they're talking to you about this very important thing that is uh groundbreaking in calculus, and you are there to contribute. So like if someone asks a question, I think that will help you to like participate and contribute to class and actually like connect with people in that environment. Yeah. Or like if you're going to a history class, you're going to a history conference, you're a historian. And like I know like if it's like an intro class, it might be very simple and like none of the things that you learn are actually groundbreaking. But imagine that they are. Like imagine that when you're learning like binomial, it's like the hardest thing that very successful mathematicians learn, and you're one of those people. And I think that's super helpful in college, especially in classes that you don't want to, like they're not going to contribute to your future other than helping you get your degree. Make it fun. Make it fun. Yeah.
Absolutely. I'm going to get to a couple of Andy's questions, then we'll move to Shani and kind of like start to like wrap up. So this is exactly what Valeria was talking about too. So for Andy, like we want to like tailor it to you. So if we feel like the self-investigation sounds like a trigger, probably is for you. That might be something that you want to do with another person, like verbally. So maybe that's like a therapist, maybe that's like a friend. But if self-investigation, just like individually thinking about it is like, that's going to be real easy for me to get absorbed, to another person, right? And kind of create a dialogue. I also know like journaling's been really supportive to my own kind of journey of kind of like investigating, getting curious, because that kind of just like creates a little bit of a barrier. But so I would kind of like customize that one for sure. And then the second one, what do you mean get up and move your feet? I usually get up and move to MD. So because you get up and move to MD, we want to do like the opposite. So you're actually probably going to want to focus on more of like the subtle movements of like the body to come back into embodiment rather than getting up and moving around, since that kind of like makes you more like susceptible to getting absorbed into MD. So just like Valeria was talking about, like a lot of these techniques need to kind of be tailored and individualized to you. It's not really like a one size fits all. But you're right on track with the questions. And that's exactly what I'm talking about with like building awareness, like questioning, getting really curious. So I feel like your intuition's in the right place, Andy. And thanks so much for the questions too. It's a great lead up to Valeria's, because I do think it's like the customizing, the tailoring, so important with this. And then Shivani.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, we got you.
First of all, thank you for your presentation. These strategies are so important, especially for me, who is going through a phase right now doing the PhD as a student, trying to find my way with all of these extensive tasks that keep on going, which are really never ending these times. I feel like one thing, in my opinion, we could actually bring here is that besides trying to tailor these strategies to ourselves, to our preferences, it's also understanding that these strategies could um, be different over time. Because I felt like in the beginning of my PhD, some strategies worked better and now they work less. And I have to find new strategies to try to counteract the fact that I've uh, come to be, I don't know how to say in English, sorry. I'm trying to translate in my
Yeah,
head.
like kind of
So
like habituated maybe. I feel like I know what you're talking about. Yeah.
exactly. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So what I feel like is that one of the things that's helped me more nowadays is being in spaces where there are other people, like study classrooms, libraries, public libraries, and beforehand it would be more like a closed, secure space that I had in my home just for studying. Um, Another thing would be that I also use the timer technique specifically for working. So, like the Pomodoro timer, I think it's something that most of us would hear on the internet. It's something that I use, but I feel like it doesn't always work. It works some days, and other days it doesn't. And I have to adjust, for example, the timer to, instead of doing 1 hour, do 20 minutes to try to get into the momentum of doing the work. And I feel like that also works for listening to music. I don't know if other people here listen to music while studying or working. My colleagues at the university do that, and that's something that at first I would compare. I would think, why can't I listen to music and work as well as other people are doing? Sometimes the noise in the room would be distracting, but I couldn't listen to music because I would be distracted by the music and would daydream more. And I found that it wasn't specifically the listening to music per se, it would be the type of music that I was listening to. So if I would go to something that wouldn't trigger my daydream, like lo-fi, I would be more connected with the work I was doing and would concentrate better. So over time, I learned that I didn't have to avoid music, for example, to work or concentrate. I could use other strategies to do that. And that also goes for motivating me to study. Sometimes I would listen to music that would motivate me. Maybe it would be a bit more triggering, but it would help me get into the momentum, and then I would change to something that wouldn't trigger daydreaming. So that's another thing that I wanted to say, and also to highlight that it's really something that you have to keep trying to understand about yourself over time, and also to try not to compare to others. I felt like this was something that I would do constantly because I was in a group of students, always interacting with other colleagues and talking about exams and work, and it would be hard for me to understand why I would daydream a lot and other colleagues wouldn't have this problem.
Really important. Again, like the kind of like evolution, like how it might shift over time and how we like shift alongside it then, and having some like response flexibility if we were to get real clinical about it. But exactly that. Thank you so much for
I
sharing.
also think that like what was I gonna say? Oh my God, I'm sorry. It's coming, it's coming, it's coming. Oh, I was also gonna say, like, if I feel like if I didn't have this problem, I would probably have another problem. Like, a lot of people struggle with scrolling, like they scroll on their phone for like many, many hours. I sometimes do that too, but that's not my main problem. But I feel like everyone has a problem, and I think sometimes, even though it's real, like the problem is really there and it's making our lives difficult, I think we should think of it as like, okay, so this is just the problem I have like anyone else. This is what I have. And how can I work with this? Like it's not like we're the only one who are struggling. Uh it's hard to study. Like most people hate it. It's not enjoyable. It's I think it's harsh to expect from ourselves perfection. Um yeah. Anyway, yeah.
Agree, right? Like there's nothing inherently wrong because we engage in MD. And,
Yeah.
and many people struggle with different like aspects, right? Like the doom scrolling as they call it and
Yeah.
such. I know Jane, Con.
Yeah, I'll be quick because I know we're running out of time. But first of all, Luna, I loved that last comment of that. But yes, everybody struggles in different ways, right? People who don't have MD can be the worst procrastinators. But I loved your comment about pretending you're in a conference. I wish I had known that because I think that would really help. Like I sometimes pretended like my daydream characters were with me or watching me, but I think the conference one was really cool. My main comment though was something about what Valeria said about yes, keeping in mind that each different things work for different people. But then what Shivani said, but even within a person, sometimes things can work and might not work later. So for example, like in general, I was always better studying in a group than like home alone, because you're more likely to go off and daydream. But if I was pretending to teach my characters this stuff, I would every once in a while I'd find myself talking out loud, and that would be embarrassing. So if I was studying that way, then I'd run back to my room and I would like talk out loud and pretend I'm like teaching the person. So I guess my point was just that different things for work for different people, but also even for the same person, something could work today but not work tomorrow, which is kind of what Shivani was saying, is that you might have to have techniques that you rotate for you. They might not all work all the time.
And also for different tasks. Like
Yeah.
if you need to study, I went to acting school and I had to like memorize a lot of lines. And even though like acting is fun, memorizing lines isn't fun. And you can't be in a room with other people memorizing your lines. So like you have to, what I would do, I would book a room at school and it would be an empty room. And I would just like leave my phone in my locker and do it there because otherwise I would probably not do it. Um, but it's a different task from like, let's say studying for a test. Yeah.
Absolutely. And then Con.
Okay, I just wanted to ask if any of our guests would like to share their experiences with MD, and if there's anything we forgot to answer, and because we've been there, it's hard. You don't have any people in your life to ask about it. There's not enough awareness about it. So while you're here, we would be glad to listen to your experiences if you are comfortable with it. You can turn your mic on if you want. That's all I wanted to say.
Yeah, agreed. Like y'all are in good company because all of us have currently struggle with it too. Um, and I know like a big thing for me, like even with clients, is like coming out in a sense as like an MDer is really important. And knowing that you're not alone. And I know we had some like activity in like the chat.
I can share. Hi, everyone. Yeah, I have no problem saying that I'm a daydreamer. I do feel that I have moved from maladaptive to more immersive. And I have better kind of ways to manage my daydreaming. I tend to take it more from a somatic and kind of energy perspective than a cognitive, because sometimes, we're already in our heads. So it's like fixing it that way is sometimes, well, that's not fixing. I don't think there's anything wrong with us, but you know, um, sometimes looking at it from that approach, um, doesn't work for me anyways. I have to be more embodied, so more mindfulness stuff works for me. And yeah, I'm all about getting the word out. Um, and hopefully I didn't miss participation in a study. Somebody put something out in one of the Facebook groups, so hopefully I can help in that. And yeah, hopefully we get in the DSM, and not many people know about this. So I work in I'm not a therapist, but I work in a department where it's all therapists and psychiatrists, and no one knew what this was. It wasn't until I took a dream tending course that somebody actually knew what it was. So um, it's too bad that it's being misrepresented, or that people are being diagnosed with different things. Like I read the case study with Liam, being diagnosed with autism just because of his stemming, and that automatically just putting him into that label instead of really looking into what he was experiencing. So yeah, just trying to keep up on all the research. And I know you guys got I think it's your website that has a ton of research articles and everything in there. So um, yeah, anyway, thank you.
Thank you. And that's why one of our projects is going to be to try to reach out to mental health professionals and offer continuing education credits, because Jane, you're one of the few mental health professionals that I've known that have heard of MD other than people specifically working or researching MD. So
Oh, truly. And I think it's only because I experienced myself. Like I found out from Reddit when I was in my 20s. I didn't find out from grad school or any other provider, but I do think it's like we're few and far between. I know it's the hill I'll die on. Like I always show up in terms of like consultations or talk to psychiatrists about this being a distinct condition and it being important to treat it as such. Like we might use similar modalities, but there is a lot of nuance to it. But a lot of the techniques that I shared with y'all today, again, from myself, from Luna, from working alongside clients, a lot of it is like trial and error right now. And so I would love to be able to have, again, work in the DSM, some like really kind of like tried and true empirically supported interventions that like, of course, we'll still need to customize, but it breaks my heart that people go in to see therapists and psychiatrists and this is not recognized. I know it was my experience too. And I stand with y'all. And again, like once we get it out there, I'm with y'all. But thank you so much, Tina, for sharing.
Yeah, I've had people laugh at me.
I know.
And then I explain it and they're like, "Oh, okay, you're being serious." So,
people
yeah,
are
I
like,
work for a huge hospital system of psychiatrists and therapists, so social workers. So, I'll be keeping my eye out.
I also I think you said you were like drink tending. Like I also met people as a barista and also like working at a club, like who are like people who bartend there. Met a few people who have MD, and my conclusion is that we love like physically immersive jobs. Like I love my barista job. It's very high speed. You have to be there. Like you have to be in your body to do it well, serve it well. It's fast. And yes, it's physically exhausting, but I also really like it keeps me from doing MD, and like just overthinking in general. Maybe it's something that we gravitate towards, like the entertainment and like service and like physical labor.
Or like the embodiment, like Tina
Yeah.
mentioned too. Like I integrate a lot of like mindfulness and like somatic. Like I'm also trained as a yoga teacher. And I know like I can't do a sitting meditation. I will get absorbed so quick that doing something like a really gentle yoga practice and integrating movement and breath is like where it's at for me. And that's so important in terms of recovery and managing. But I'm not surprised to hear that it's like also maybe in the occupation. Like I can see where it is like you're so like integrated body and mind when you're again being a barista, bartender.
Yeah, I think I choose my life because of like I can't do a job like just sitting. Who's calling me? Yeah, anyway. Yeah.
Oh, well, should we start to wrap up? Like I appreciate y'all so much for coming in, for sharing, for hearing us out.
Yeah, thank you so much, both Jane and Luna. I think there were a lot of good tidbits. I wish I could go back in time and know some of these, but you know, I very much appreciate it. And again, just another plug to members to join the ISMT. If you volunteer, you get a free membership. But we really, we want this to be built up from the community. So we really could use the help, whether it's like a $5 donation or volunteering or joining us. We just greatly appreciate it. And thank you again, both of you.
Thank you. It was really interesting. And me too. I wish I could go back in time and studying better with all this awareness.
Thank you, everybody. I'll stop recording now.